tense.
It is, isn't it? Just like two men just chatting at each other.
Like Parkinson, but shitter. So much shitter.
Alright mate, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm good, let's keep this short and sweet.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
last time we went on for fucking ages.
We did rabbit on and we got some, we got some, not complaints, but someone did highlight it to me and said you've got to sort of minimise this part. So.
Complaints is worrying because we've never had any positive reviews. Jump straight to
We don't get
complaints.
any feedback, to be fair.
So yeah, just to quickly say, we've got a special guest on this week, which is Rhiannon, who is Josh Roy's sister.
We realised in hindsight that we didn't really, in hindsight of listening, we didn't really address that at the time. They were just like another voice.
So that's who the mysterious female voice is in the show.
She gives like she did a fantastic job. She brought an air of professionality that not only I wasn't expecting. I don't think professionalism.
Yeah.
That I certainly wasn't expecting, and I think she dipped into both Latin and Shakespearean at points. And so
she taught you a lot.
It was tough keeping up, really.
Rhiannon's actually a professional publisher. She's just got a job at Penguin.
And I didn't sign up to that as well.
So how did that make you feel doing the second chapter of Wormworld?
It was terrifying, and then it's sort of, I made her we made her read it as well.
Yeah, which was kind of, I feel like that degraded her.
It's a kick in the teeth, isn't it? Because it's annoying as well, because this debut, not only have we sort of dicked her over there, that might be her career gone.
It's true. She never gets out and she's fucking...
It's like a double whammy.
Shit. To be fair, she wasn't exactly full of praise for it, was she? But
no,
anyway.
she did fantastic work, though.
Yeah, she did a good job reading it out. So, last 15 minutes are going to be Josh's second chapter of his fantasy novel. Before that, Gatsby. Yeah.
If you don't like the book part, A, you're wrong. B, you can just skip it.
Turn it off after an hour.
Don't.
Hello and welcome to a novel adventure where we attempt to reach the back cover of books we definitely should have read by now. Today, The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald's 106-page diss of the Jazz Age that's often held up as the great American novel. It sells over 500,000 copies a year to this day and is repeatedly voted Best American Novel of the 20th Century by the Modern Library, amongst others. What's that list? You beat me to it. I was going to say, what's that list you always cite, Josh?
Yeah, The Guardian. I told you, I've told you time and time again
right.
that it was top of The Guardian.
Can I ask you a question? Do you actually read The Guardian, or is this just the top Google result?
Usually I read like the most viewed articles or whatever. I can't be arsed sort of going trawling through.
So your life in knowledge is based on a series of lists of stuff.
Did you see it in the headline?
BuzzFeed and that.
Alright, joining me today are Josh.
Hello.
J. Roy.
Hi.
And special guest Rhiannon.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
I've decided to sort of ditch the culture thing because...
What was that?
It was shit last time, wasn't it?
Sorry, what was the culture thing?
Well, last time I sort of did some sort of culture thing. We were innovating, weren't we? And separating the wheat from the chaff.
Right, yeah.
And I thought I'd try and innovate the hello part because it's just the same each week.
So you're going to do it in a different language.
I can't remember what I did last time, but I remember cringing at it.
I think you said buongiorno.
Oh, okay. Yeah, probably buongiorno.
It's amazing I remember that, really, because it is shit, you're right.
Yeah.
Bienvenue, is that one?
I mean, there are loads of
welcome in German, I think.
Oh, that's right, bienvenue, listener.
Fuck yeah, now.
That's quite good.
That was pretty good, yeah.
How are you doing, Rhiannon?
I'm doing okay. I'm kind of on the just smashed my new phone of less than a week rebound.
Oh.
That's horrible.
I survived my iPhone 5 for 6 years without smashing the screen in the first week of this one.
Commiserations.
There it goes. So apart from that, things are looking up.
Hunky dory.
I got a text through about that. It just broke my heart.
Hang on, how did you get a text?
Broken screen, broken heart.
On my phone, not from her.
I was going to say, the whole in the story.
I had a witness statement come through. So Rhiannon, you got the call. How did that feel?
Okay.
I got the call to turn up and talk about a book that I haven't read since A-level.
Has anyone really?
I haven't.
But it stayed with me, so I figured I could probably still chat about it. At least the same amount that J-Roy does.
Yeah, I was going to say, just do what we do, just fucking wing it. You'll be fine.
Okay, so coming up, we've got lots of Gatsby chat, Kill the Author, listener questions, and most excitingly of all, the second chapter from Josh's debut fantasy novel. Last month we had chapter 1, Wormworld, which left us with lots of questions. What's this week's chapter called?
The tricky second chapter.
Very meta.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it tricky to write it?
Yeah, it was harder. And now I understand what sort of big artists and that go through when they're trying to pen their second bodies of work.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
You are a bit of a tortured artist.
It took about 2.5 hours this time round.
I'm disgusted that this is off with the net.
Well, I'm very excited about it, and we'll have that later. But first, Gatsby. So this is actually our second crack at this book, because we did it maybe a year or so ago, and the recording was just like unusably bad, if I remember correctly. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah, it was shite, mate. We couldn't use it.
And I think at the time it was voted. It was the first book we got like recommended to do.
Yeah. Who by?
I can't remember.
The readers, the listeners,
listeners,
even.
Yeah. So I would say it's a book that appears both on sort of average Joe's favourites of all time list, but also has a place in what we might call Ollie's snob list, because slagging off is not it. It's an undeniable classic, respected in literary circles, of which I'm no part. Constantly cited as an influence by authors. So last season we did Secret History by Donna Tartt, and she cites this book as like the main influence for that. And it's studied all the way up to degree level, but it's also entrenched in pop culture, known by pretty much everyone, and spawned a film with a Jay-Z soundtrack. So basically, it's an A&A no-brainer. So it's a very context-heavy book, so I think we should try and fill in a fair bit here about Mr. F. Scott for the week, and then we can kill him off and not talk about him anymore. So, Josh, you want to start by reading out a bit of Wikipedia?
No, I don't. Because...
Wait, what's this?
Well, where I usually do the biography corner...
Yeah, right. Is that what it's called?
Well, each and every agenda I pick up that you send over always send through free facts. So I'm presuming that you don't want that, and so you can fuck yourself. So I've come armed with free facts.
Oh!
It's
back to the original.
Although, I do want to warn you that I did watch a 3-minute biography on YouTube, so I do know.
Well, we also watched Midnight in Paris.
Whack.
Didn't we?
Yeah, we did, yeah. And so I've gained a lot of... Yeah, that was the other source of knowledge.
It's rubbish.
I quite liked it.
Oh, I liked it.
Oh, wasn't that with Tom Hiddleston was playing F. Scott Fitzgerald?
Yeah, and who was playing Hemingway? Just fighting everyone.
Just some butch bloke, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So free facts in no particular order, not starting from birth today, is that the last royalty check he received was for $13.13.
Was that when he was alive?
Unlucky for some, yeah.
Fuck yeah. How much is that?
4 months later.
Do you know how much that is?
Oh, but it's pittance, isn't it? It's piss all.
I don't know.
Because he was also complaining that... Oh, well, he wasn't complaining because he was dead, but he only sold 25,000 units of novel when he was alive compared to 25 million in 2013.
Yeah, Gatsby wasn't a commercial success when it first came out. It was only after Fitzgerald's death, and mostly that was due to the fact that it was shipped over to people serving in the army. So
really?
Army servicemen
Exactly, Rhiannon.
to read. I'm guessing because it was short.
That's kind of why we're
cutting down on the cost of air freight.
Also, soldiers.
I don't think he was in the army for a bit, wasn't he? But I don't think he ever went anywhere. Cause
briefly.
He
dropped out of Princeton and joined the army.
Yeah, it was a bit of a
But I think he was a bit scared to be in the army because he didn't seem to want to do
I
it.
think that's pretty fair enough. The army does seem like a very terrifying place.
He does kind of touch on the Great War a bit, but sort of a bit sheepishly. Like he sort of wants to approach it, but then also knows he might get found out.
You never
Much
saw
like
any
Gatsby.
action.
For the listener back home, I'm putting a face of smugness.
Going back to what you were saying about... What was that film called?
A Midnight in Paris.
Midnight in Paris. He wrote this novel in France.
Okay.
Where him and his wife Zelda were sort of like the Jay-Z and Beyonce of the time, from what I can gather. And as you said, I made it up. I heard that they were the big wigs of the time, the big names on Paris.
First on the sort of party list.
First on the scene, yeah. I think she was actually more interesting than he was. He was a bit of a boring bastard. They were drinking. Probably drugs.
Have you ever done one of these awful things where you don't say they're boring?
No. I've exhausted my facts now. What did I finish with? Oh, and that's where they met Hemingway and all of those sorts of people. I think maybe James Joyce was there, but it might not have been.
Is that something you've gathered
Can
from...
you go back to Wikipedia, please?
Is that something you've gathered from A Midnight in Paris?
No, that
Which
was
is
from
not-
my
it's
own
not
biography. I think
Okay.
my own biography, my own research, and I think also he was a failed screenwriter. He went to Hollywood, but sort of bombed a little bit. Wrote a play called The Vegetable, bombed again. So greatest writer apparently.
Again.
Well, I've read that he copied some passages in his books word for word from Zelda's journal. So there's a certain question as to how much things he actually
I
wrote
think he
himself
was-
as well.
Like
Yeah.
Shakespeare.
He was a massive critic of her one and only novel as well.
Sexist.
Yeah, sexist.
That
comes across in Gatsby, but I'll go there in a bit.
Apparently he was also quite highly dyslexic, and his
Really?
his ex-classmate, who was the literary critic Edmund Wilson, commented on his book This Side of Paradise that it was one of the most illiterate books of any merit ever published, full of English words misused with the most reckless abandon.
Wow, so he had a good editor.
Got a lot in common with Josh then as well.
Yeah, he hasn't got sort of spell check though.
That's true, actually.
Jokes on him.
Anything else?
The last thing that I had that I found out about him was that he kept a really weirdly detailed record of his life.
Yeah, I saw that as
Did
well.
he?
Yeah, so
What, like as a biography?
I think he had a diary, and then after he had like a
yeah,
really
but it was
odd-
almost like an Excel spreadsheet where it was just sort of he wrote down facts about his life and when they happened, as far as I can gather. But he also
Sounds
wrote
like
a summary
He's a
of
creep.
a summary of the year in a sentence and things like that. So
That's quite nice.
but,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
might do that.
at age 13 he was height 5'3". He also included that age 14 was a year of much activity but dangerous.
Ooh.
Fair play.
Which
You
is
want to do a
cool.
summary of last year, 2018?
No.
Fair enough.
Not really. It's a horrible
Sure,
question.
It's just redacted, really, isn't it?
It's a bit like what they did on Hitchhiker's Guide, though, when it was like, what did they say about Earth? Harmless.
Mostly harmless.
Mostly harmless.
Yeah.
And if you haven't
Is that
listened to
what you
that
said
episode,
That's what you said about 2018, mostly harmless.
mostly harmless.
Fair
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. Well, let's kill the author for this week there. See you later, Fitzgerald. So I forgot to do a synopsis this week, Stars Gang. So does anyone want to kick one off?
I can give it a go.
Go on, mate.
So it's a novel that is described from the point of view of Nick Carraway, who's a pretty
It's Fun Sponge.
all passive, bland
Yeah.
in the background, doesn't really get in the way or annoy people too much
He's
kind
a
of
proper
character.
Melvin,
He's
isn't
just
It's a fucking Melvin. He's a right Herbert.
and he moves into a house next to this mysterious Gatsby character.
Yeah.
on
who's-
West Egg.
West
West
Egg.
Egg, which is where sort of the new and up and coming new money people seem to be
Sure.
living, as opposed to East Egg, which is nearby, which is where all the
Old
old,
money,
money
yeah.
live.
Very clever.
The landed.
So Gatsby throws all these massive, ridiculous parties. I think the Baz Luhrmann film probably summed up those parties pretty well. They're all just
Jay-Z.
yeah,
Is that the
yeah,
Jay-Z one?
Jay-Z and Beyonce of this era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As some scholar
Um,
once said.
And it turns out that
Sorry. You're literally describing what happened in a film that already existed.
Beyonce wasn't in the film.
And you're alluding to the fact that you were the one who brought this to the public's attention.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on, Rhiannon.
And Nick discovers that Gatsby is in love with his cousin Daisy, who lives on East Egg with her husband.
Yeah.
And
his
then
name?
various things
Tom Buchanan.
occur one after the other, where Gatsby is obsessed with trying to get Daisy to love him back.
Yeah.
And involves a
Ends
bit of a
tragically.
sticky ending. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you throw a big party open that girl you fancy comes around and then she doesn't, and then you're like, all right, everyone clear out, fuck off.
Yeah. That was a fantastic synopsis.
That was really
Yeah.
And if
really
you haven't
good.
seen it, I think it's on Netflix now as well. So
What, the film?
yeah,
You
just
promoted it?
pop it on.
Yeah,
Maybe we can get some
other media
sponsorship
outlets
soon.
are available.
Right, let's crack on with our novel adventure.
Oh jeez, I scared the life out of
You look so unimpressed.
that. It's a pretty heavy track, isn't it?
So this is from the Spotify audiobook of Gatsby, read by Michael Shannon.
Yeah, it bookends the audiobook. So you get to hear it twice in an episode, which is a treat.
And what Watch his face. And what I wanted to ask is, Do you think that captures the mood of the book?
I think it's a shite attempt.
I think it captures the mood of The Wind in the Willows.
It sounds like that bit. It sounds like that bit that they play while the Chuckle Brothers are like moving around, or like Broom's gone off somewhere to like rescue a dog.
It is very Brum, isn't it? Do you call him Broom?
Are you asking? Do I feel that it is representative of the energy of the jazz age, and is that something which I feel is represented in the book? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
I mean, that's fucking shite, isn't it? It sounds like someone's fucking recorded it on like one of those old polyphonic phones, you know, when you used to get that thing that...
It could be made on GarageBand or something like that. I think.
Alright, if you had to pick a tune that you think captured the mood of this book, what would it be?
Miles Davis, baby.
Probably, maybe something, like a modern day tune?
Whatever you want, mate.
Yeah, maybe something by Amy Winehouse. Very good.
That's a great show.
Or actually, do you know what? No, I might change that to something from Arctic Monkeys' first record.
What, like?
I feel.
What, like?
Last
night they used to bounce.
I feel like it's fair to say that it's that level of energy and excitement that is trying to be captured throughout a lot of this, and sort of like a room filled with like reprobates.
Do you reckon the 1920s was the equivalent of the modern day Skins party? As in, like, the show The Skins Party. The Skins? Skins.
Just Skins.
The Skins.
The Skins Party sounds like something else you watched in your
yeah, I guess, in a way, yeah, it is, I suppose. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily... Yeah.
Sort of toffs, right? Is that how you sum it up?
Sort of like Bullingdon Club style.
Yeah.
You know, like David Cameron fucking a pig type thing.
Yeah.
But then I also,
from
Gatsby, you kind of get the impression that it was people from all sides of life. You know, you get these sort of professional dancers and things like that who attend Gatsby's parties. You get really, like, random people who are there.
Who was that bloke in the library with the owl eyes?
Owl Eyes. Owl Eyes is my favourite character.
I didn't get why he was there.
Oh, Rhiannon's going to bring him up later.
Owl Eyes is my favourite character, like, by far. He's just such, like, an underrated...
I did like how he turned up at the end, to be fair.
Yeah.
I like how he sort of...
Well, actually,
he gave his due.
Well, Rhiannon, why don't you tell these guys what you said to me earlier about why that was?
So, Owl Eyes is one of my favourite characters because I think Nick and Jordan stumble in on him and he's in the library during one of the parties. So he's kind of like that guest who's going through your bathroom cabinet while everyone else is downstairs. He's
those kind of things, eh? I mean, that's not kosher.
Foot medication.
But he's absolutely like drunk as a skunk and looking at all these books and exclaiming to Nick and Jordan that they're real, you know, they're real books. Like it should be a surprise that they're real. Which turns out to be apparently a lot of people around that time, especially like New Wealth people, would just have paper covers of books, like cover covers, so pretending that they'd read things when they hadn't. So he almost felt like he got this sort of insight into who Gatsby was as a person, because Gatsby had actually bought the books and possibly had actually read them, which I think came to light when, at the end of the book, he's the only other person apart from Nick and Gatsby's father who turns up to his funeral, who's the only one, the thousands that go to the parties, because he's the only one who found out that little bit about him. So Owl Eyes was my favourite character just because he's so underrated, he's so funny.
I kind of like the idea though that also he's just like super nosy and a bit of conspiracy theory, so he's just checking to see whether he's actually died or not. He's like knocking on it going, it's a real coffin.
I think you're getting too into character for this. Well, why do you not have a name? Why was he called Owl Eyes? Was he spectacled?
Yeah.
Okay.
On to the characters then. Do you think he deserves to be called Great Gatsby? Is he that great?
But there are things that get called great that aren't really that great.
Like what?
Great white sharks.
They're pretty great.
Great Wall of China.
It's the longest wall in the world, mate.
Is it?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Great pyramids.
But I think it's one of those things that, because it's just a term of endearment, isn't it? Really, it doesn't have to be that great.
What do you think Nick says that about Gatsby? It's him describing how he sees Gatsby.
Yeah. Well, it's from his perspective, isn't it? Yeah. So he can title the book what he likes.
Would you describe him as great, man?
Gatsby?
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I think if someone threw a party that big, now to me, in my social circle, I'd call them great. Yeah. But the whole sort of bit at the end, not so much.
Isn't that an interesting point about the book, which is that it says on the cover "Great Gatsby," and it's a sort of superficial nature of, this is what I'm telling you he is, when there's no actual substance to that throughout.
He's kind of setting you up to before you even read the book, you're expecting that you're going to want to admire him and respect him.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that's necessarily the impression you get when you read the book.
And it's the same way that like Nick's character is introduced to Gatsby, which is to say he is the great. I don't know if you say the Great Gatsby, but you're presented with this is the great man has a party. So
Yeah,
big house,
well, I think
it's all about that. Like you have this front cover which has the Great Gatsby on it.
Yeah,
and like you say, you're set up with okay, this is going to be the great man, and then you read it and you're like, hold on a minute, no, this isn't the case.
Yeah, I think he does that quite a lot, the author, doesn't he? I think he sort of makes a mockery of the American dream in other things, aka there was the play that he made called The Vegetable, I think. The protagonist of that wanted to be a postman.
Yeah.
And was the whole thing was that it was making a mockery of the American dream, saying why is it not alright just to be a postman?
Right. But that's the one you said bombed earlier.
Yeah, bombed, yeah, but there's still do you
think it's because people didn't want to hear it?
Yeah, potentially.
And do you think that's maybe why this book wasn't successful at the time?
He could have been. Why not?
Right.
He originally titled it something else. He actually nearly called it Trimalchio and West Egg, which involves a reference to a very obscure character from a Roman book who... Trimalchio was an arrogant former slave who became quite wealthy by distasteful tactics. So it does make sense, but at the same time, I would struggle to find the average Joe who'd be able to find that without looking it up.
What did he actually do? Was a prohibition lager?
It's hinted that it's that.
Yeah.
It's never actually sort of said out loud that's what he did, but it's kind of hinted. Because there was prohibition at the time, that's kind of seeing as there's no prohibition now, it's kind of a good way to be like, well, it's a legal activity, but no one's really massively going to blame him for it now.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like if it was like, sort of like he was involved in the sex trade or something like that, people would still find massive judgment there, but I think when it's just, he was importing
Is it not a bit like being a drug dealer now?
Possibly, yeah.
You bring up an interesting point there with the title change, because obviously when you've got, what was it called,
Trimalchio and West Egg.
Trimalchio and West Egg. So that would suggest that actually he's directing that for an audience who would have a in-depth literary background. But you said that earlier that it was popular with soldiers during the war. So who do you think...
They were really posh though.
Oh, okay. Well, but like,
and also, it was just sent to them. It's not like 20,000 soldiers asked for the Great Gatsby specifically.
Who do you think it was written for?
I always think it's like leaving a memoir of all the horrible stuff he's been involved in, and like sort of cleansing himself of it in some way. Like he's disgusted by this jazz age life he's led.
But I think it was half biographical, wasn't it? I think he wrote about what he knew. I think Daisy was loosely based on Zelda, as far as I'm aware. And there was something else with his stepdad.
So do you feel then that he identifies with Nick, so that he was like a sort of, not imposter, but he was part of this world, and he was reflecting on, like, he was always the sounding board for other people and stuff, and he wasn't fully invested in like others were.
Yeah, but Nick was seduced by it.
Yeah.
Which I don't think he ever was, or at least he doesn't like to think he was.
So he was scornful of it.
Yeah, it's maybe almost like Nick is like what he could have been if he'd kind of accepted.
Okay.
If you had to be a character, who would you be?
Owl Eyes.
Nice.
Owl Eyes again. Owl Eyes 2.
You copying Rhiannon, are you?
Like, do you mean who I would...
Who did you relate to? Who did you connect with?
Because I think all the characters have their faults, so it's kind of more like, what fault would you accept yourself?
I don't like or trust rich people, so I wouldn't do it.
Right.
Nick's not rich.
Yeah, but he's a Melvin as well. We've been through this. It's so boring. There's not really anyone, but I think if I was going to the party, I'm trying to learn guitar, so I'd be in the band. They all, I didn't like any of the conversations they had. I tell you, who pissed me off most, Tom Buchanan. I thought he was a proper show off, and I hated him.
Yeah,
and he was a two-timer, wasn't he?
Who says two? I feel like there's probably more than two in there.
That's an interesting point to raise, though. Did you hate Daisy as a character? Did you hate her as much as you hated Tom?
No. I didn't like how women were portrayed in it, because they were seen as ambitious.
Elaborate.
Ultimately flawed.
Yeah.
Now, it was that thing that Daisy said about that she wishes her daughter to be a pretty little fool, which is a pretty sad state of affairs.
But is she not saying that? But it's better to not understand how awful it is to be a woman in this time.
Yeah, but that's still not a very great viewpoint.
Yeah, but it's very like nihilistic. But it's still like, I don't think he's saying that. Like he's saying it's a curse to be an intelligent woman because you will realise how shit life is.
And you'll have to make these decisions rather than sort of have these decisions kind of made for you.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I actually have a quote from someone who was very emphatic about this point on Goodreads, who said in capital letters and bold. I'm not sure how they got bold into a comment.
Before we do it, whenever I get a text in capital letters, I have to shout it in my head. So can you semi-shout it?
Don't shout
so
it.
It says, Daisy Buchanan is a gift to readers everywhere and the hero of The Great Gatsby for sure. No questions. Fight me in the comments if you think you're bold.
Fight me in the comments is fantastic.
But there are genuine people who've written entire blog posts about why they think Daisy is one of the best characters ever.
That's
and
interesting.
I can't say I massively understand it myself.
No, I don't agree with it at all. I actually think that Jordan's the best character.
Yeah, I agree.
She's like that kind of very sly, very droll. She understands it. She's like a bit of a gets sort of swept up along with it as well, but she is much more reflective and insightful about what's happening, and I think she's definitely the person who I'd be most interested to meet, and I feel like I would get on with the most out of.
Definitely.
But then I guess her flaw is that even though she knows these things are going on, she doesn't do anything about them. She kind of just lets things happen around her. And she cheats at golf.
And she
How do you cheat at golf?
You know that thing where you pick up the ball and put it in a different place?
How do people not notice that?
Look at that, the thing over there.
That's pointing to the distance.
No, I don't
Have you
know.
not seen Goldfinger?
Is there cheating in golf?
Yeah.
No, Goldfinger. I haven't seen it. What happens?
Goldfinger.
Are you saying
Golfgate? How does he cheat? How does he cheat?
What's his name with a hat? And he drops the ball down in his pocket. And he
gets an maybe that's what she does.
Conniving
You swap
tactics.
it.
And also,
Surely
if
people
it's,
just look at
but
the
if
ball.
it's in the 1910s, you probably haven't got all the mod cons. Why am I getting anything? that is such a setup.
Alright, Josh, I'll give you another question.
Okay.
So you said that, in your words, Nick is a Melvin.
Yeah.
Why do you think Gatsby warms to him then?
Maybe because he reminds him he's different to all the people that he meets at his parties.
Is it because he's lower class?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
He's from a poor background. It makes him more real, more salt of the earth. Does he know that he is Daisy's cousin?
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
Well,
he's
then-
party sucking up.
Then he's a little trickster, isn't he? He's trying to get to the end game, the green light, if you will.
I feel that there's more in it though. I feel there's more in this. I mean, when I was reading it, first of all, I felt that there was definitely a sense of them both being imposters and them both being outsiders to this world. Neither of them have come from a background where they have a huge amount of wealth. They're not really used to it, and then they connected with the fact that they both fought in the war. And I also found it interesting that they were both kind of almost laughing at the nonsense that was happening around them. They're both very level-headed. Gatsby didn't even drink.
But he was having these parties long before Nick turned up anyway, so he was obviously trying or enticing Daisy to come to the parties.
Yeah, definitely. But I think there's more to it. The reason why there's more to their relationship than just that. Otherwise, that's not an interesting thing to have written about. So in the first instance, I think that there was a sort of comfort between them from that, in the same way that why Nick warmed to Gatsby, there's a comfort from knowing that they were the same. But then I realised that actually, I think it's because Gatsby warms to Nick because Nick's prepared to buy into Gatsby's vision of who he is, and that he wants to believe that Gatsby is who he says he is. And I mean, you can get this in the beginning where there's a line about whenever you feel like criticising anyone, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you have had. Yeah. And then he says that, and he always reserves judgment, and that's sort of born from this kind of infinite hope, and he's infinitely hoping that Gatsby's going to be this amazing person who he wants him to be. Yeah. Because that's what he's always been told to believe.
But is everyone not suckered in by Gatsby's charade before Tom gets his man on it? Because everyone the way everyone talks about him at the party is that they all think he's this amazing.
Yeah, there are all these rumours that are going around, like he's the brother of a Kaiser and things like that.
But everyone likes to think that he's from Oxford, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everyone describes him as an Oxford man.
But that's also very interesting because the two people who it doesn't form are Tom and the other guy who rides in on their horses.
Yeah, but also if someone's trying to steal your girlfriend,
but he didn't know. He didn't know at that point. He didn't know at that point. That's what's really important. Yeah, so he sniffed out from a distance the fact that Gatsby was trying to impress, saying, "Why don't you stay for dinner? Why don't you stay for drinks? Why don't you stay for whatever?" And
that's a red flag right there. As in, no, not a conversational red flag. As in, that's just a red flag if someone's inviting your girlfriend for drinks.
No, but he was inviting Tom for drinks. It was Tom.
Daisy was for drinks.
That could be just due to the area, because there was that whole split between West Egg and East Egg, and the old money and new money. New money were very happy to be ingratiated into the old money, but I don't think old money were very happy at all to let new money in.
No, precisely, and that's a big part of it. And those are the two people who sniffed him out from the beginning, and that's kind of what Fitzgerald was trying to say, is that you can. That's the broken American dream, which is you can get as far as you can get, but at the end of the day, they still won't let you in.
It's miserable, that, isn't it?
So something I found really interesting was how. I mean, what you said earlier, Josh, you know, you're made to hate Tom. You hate Tom and Daisy, you kind of forgive Daisy. But yet, they use the same language, they display the same kind of behaviour, and they conduct the same actions. So, I mean, I was interested in what you guys thought about why it's presented that Tom is the villain and Daisy is the damsel. And, you know, is this, you know, for instance, because Nick fancies his cousin? Like, is that...
I think that you're introduced to Tom cheating on Daisy from quite an early stage.
It's the first time that you see Tom, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. He takes a phone call and then they speed into like the Ash place, go to the garage and then pick up Myrtle. So I think that sets him up from a writer's perspective and a reader's perspective to be the villain almost immediately, and then you see Daisy as the sort of more vulnerable woman.
Yeah.
You also see Tom just being mindlessly racist, talking about all these high up books that he's read about
the far
about immigrants and things like that. So he's not in any way even attempted to be seen as a good character.
But do you then feel that actually what Fitzgerald is doing is masking the fact that Daisy is... Because there's a point where, it's almost right at the very beginning, where it says that Nick sees in Daisy Tom, and that they are the same person. And do you feel that actually... the way you're presented Daisy is through the lens of Gatsby. So at the beginning you see her as this like amazing, you know, nothing could go wrong. She's this wonderful person.
She needs to be rescued.
Yeah. And then towards the end, when he falls out of sort of love with Gatsby, he kind of falls out of love with Daisy, and then that's when you have a more balanced view of it. When really, Daisy and Tom are actually quite similar, and yet we're saying that, you know, Daisy's presented as this lovely, wonderful person, and Tom isn't. They're actually neither of them particularly nice people.
I think Daisy's character comes out a lot more by the end. I think at the beginning you're just supposed to think, oh, she's lovely, she's nice enough, she's welcoming to Nick that she probably hasn't seen for quite a long time, and you don't really think too in depth about her. You're more distracted by how abhorrent Tom seems. He's evidently cheating on her. He's reading this far right literature. He's shouting all these opinions that he probably shouldn't be having. This, that, and the other. And you know that Daisy's aware that he's cheating on her because she hears the phone go and she's quite upset about it, and she has a few deep thoughts around that time.
But also like it's his cousin, so like he's obviously would rather believe that she's being corrupted by...
He doesn't know her very well, importantly.
Yeah, but it's still like family though, isn't it? There's still that family bond. But also, do you think because it was written in... when was it written? 1920s?
1920.
Yeah. That the far right literature would have been as effective back then as it is now, if that makes sense?
I think, that's a really good question. And actually, I think for us that comes across as like it's a very racist thing to say, whereas back then it wouldn't necessarily have been racist, it would have been more of like a traditionalist conservative thing to say.
Exactly. It was old money on built
exactly, and it wouldn't carry the weight of sort of the social impact or so-called social consequences that it does today.
Yeah.
I feel though that what is far more a stronger point that Fitzgerald uses to sort of push that and create that disparity between how we judge Tom and how we judge Daisy is the environment that they're in. So when Tom cheats on Daisy, it's in like this kind of ashy place and it's all hot and sweaty and like volcanic and hellish. And then when Daisy, you know, cheats on Tom, it's with Gatsby and it's raining and it's clean and there's white everywhere and things are being washed away and it seems like, and there's like rain, but then they're protected from the rain. And I mean, I was wondering, do you feel like that's a fair representation of Daisy and Tom, or do you feel that that's something that Fitzgerald has done to make you look at Daisy how Gatsby looks at Daisy?
I think the difference between the two sort of like acts of cheating, as it were, though, was that Tom's having it off with this woman that he has no intention of ever being with, and that's evident from the start, and she's possibly just one of many. And
I guess it's sort of in reply to that point as well, isn't it? Like, Tom's made the first move. Oh, I guess that they knew each other before Gatsby and Daisy, but I guess it's sort of after in the linear story, so it can be contested that it's not as bad.
Do you think that Tom doesn't hold any feelings for this woman? He seemed very upset. Yeah, he seemed very upset when she died, and he seemed like he didn't want to commit. He, in the same way that Daisy couldn't commit to Gatsby because she was married, Tom felt like he couldn't commit to Myrtle. Not that he would ever sort of actively want to, because he was disgusted by her social situation. But do you feel that actually he would have liked to if she were from high society?
I mean, he also punched her in the face and broke her nose at one point.
Yeah,
so I feel like there are other parts there that he didn't like so much. I think he liked the idea of her. He just liked the idea of this other life that he could escape to.
Like a power thing as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, oh look, I'll buy you a dog and an apartment, and look how great I am, and then I can go back to my regular life.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with him.
Okay, so one of the things that I wrote down while I was reading it was how does Fitzgerald, which I assume is supposed to be Fitzgerald, use the environment as context to shape the narrative surrounding a character's actions?
Ooh, deep question.
What the hell does that mean?
I only really noticed, the Ashland
Well, that's so
part.
The Ashland.
I mean, but that's quite in your face as well, isn't it? It's like, obviously it's quite barren.
So yeah, broadly I was talking about the ash and the water and the hot and the wet and how he uses...
Pathetic fallacy.
Pathetic fallacy, yes! Here we go.
Green flag.
Green flag for Josh. How he uses pathetic fallacy to shape the narrative of the character, by which I mean to make you have a certain viewpoint about a character, which isn't necessarily what someone reading it objectively, just the facts would have.
Yeah.
So why is he using pathetic fallacy?
I see what you mean.
Yeah, precisely.
Sure.
So, and I mean, so some of the ones I picked out were when they were saying that the candles were being lit and relit pointlessly, which is symbolic of a proper routine and the rules that need to be followed if you live in high society. And when Nick originally goes round to Daisy and Tom's house, and Daisy has all the windows open, it's lots of billowing and wind coming through, and it's all sort of very light and airy. And Tom comes in and shuts all the windows to stop the draught, which I felt was sort of maybe like a metaphor for rejecting social change and kind of stagnation. So I was just wondering if you guys sort of
stifling creativity of the time.
Well, yeah, and I just thought, is there anything that you guys recognised in the book?
I think part of it is that things like East Egg and West Egg weren't even just inventions in the book. They were actual real places. So they were named after Great Neck and Little Neck, I think they're called, which are in the same place as West Egg and East Egg are in the book. And they have the same distinctions between wealth. So Great Neck, where very rich old money people lived and were rich together, as I think was described in the book.
Were rich together. How fucking horrible is that sentence?
I know. It's one of my favourite sentences of the book, is where people play polo and were rich together. And then Little Neck, which is where the sort of new money moved into, which is where Fitzgerald lived for a few years, I think.
Yeah.
So part of it is it's genuinely based on the environment that Fitzgerald was in, but there are definitely places like the Ashland, the wasteland, which were probably more of an invention in terms of pathetic fallacy. I especially liked the eyes of T.J. Eckelberg.
Yeah.
That were kind of, they semi represent God in the fact that they're just watching everything that people are doing, and there's a sense of like someone's watching and judgment will follow. Kind of.
I think that's a really interesting point, and again, sort of what sort of being back earlier said about, whenever you feel like criticising anyone, just remember that all people in this world haven't had the advantages that you have had, and a lot of this is about judgment and about Nick's judgment. And what do you feel is his judgment? That's quite a big question.
I think he's just sort of, he's not overly expressive. He's just sort of documenting what's going on. There are times where he does pass a stronger judgment, but then seems to be quite bowled over quite easy. Because at one point, I think he says that he despises Gatsby, and at the end, they're sort of all right together. Well, I mean, Gatsby's deceased, but.
He prefers him when he's dead.
He's just sort of fine. So I think he doesn't portray a lot of emotion.
He really doesn't like the people at the party that Tom takes him to, though. He has quite a lot of disgust, I think, with the friends that Myrtle invites over. I think, and so you do kind of wonder if whether that's like a class thing, because Nick isn't rich in the way that Tom is rich, but he still has a sort of strong family background.
Still a Bond man and whatever.
And he's just not very.
That's really interesting, because actually the only character in the book which Tom doesn't have a problem with and doesn't pass judgment on really is Nick, until he develops a relationship with Gatsby. But he has like a sort of begrudging respect for him, and I mean, partly if that's because, like you say, he's come from a background of a very middle class background, but also he's not threatening. He's not, he's the cousin of Daisy first of all, so he's not threatening on sort of like masculine sort of need to be at alpha male level, but also it's that but also he's not trying to be someone who he isn't. He's not trying to do what Gatsby's doing. The extreme example of going, I'm not like I come from nowhere, but I got a huge amount of money. He's not trying to be new money, so he understands Nick to be in his proper place.
I also think there's an element of Tom sort of trying to reclaim what he thinks is rightfully his. I think he was quite a big cheese when he was younger. And sort of fell off that. So I think he was like an American...
big cheese.
Yeah, he was a big cheese when he was younger. And now things haven't panned out. And now someone's stealing his... Sorry, I keep doing that. Someone's sort of stealing his girlfriend. He's getting defensive. And he sees, Nick as an ally because...
He knew Nick at university, though. They were in the class at Princeton together, I think. I think is the story. So he already knew Nick. And I think, as well, that sort of Princeton education is kind of like a bonding factor as well because... It's a similar background thing. It's a background thing. Yeah,
the university is quite a big. Yeah, as earlier about Thingy being in Oxford a lot, Gatsby going to Oxford. So maybe they care about that in America.
I think they care about that ever. I think anywhere in the world, if you say you went to Oxford, that's giving you social standing right there.
Yeah.
Do you want me to ask you a question about symbolism?
No, because we've covered it all now. We said about the green light, said about the ashes. Rhiannon even said about the eyes of the Doctor.
T.J. Ecclesburg.
T.J. Ecclesburg.
Who is T.J. Ecclesburg?
Supposedly it was just an advertisement for an optician.
Right.
But the advertisement was a big pair of glasses and eyes that were just looking down.
Watching you.
You know, one of those like billboards that has never been changed for the past 50 years or something.
Was it the only thing that was still standing in the Ashlands? And why was it the Ashlands?
I think it was by the railroad, so I think there was a lot more smoke and smut and things like that that were coming out. And it was where like place like the garage was. So it wasn't like there was just nothing but ash. The George's garage was there and like mechanics and things like that. It was just a very poor area. Very emphasised, I think.
No, fuck symbolism.
Right. Generally, or just on the agenda?
Just on the agenda.
How do you feel about symbolism normally?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it lets you understand the book in wider context.
Did anyone else get Black Mirror vibes from this book? In that technology is presented as incredibly scary throughout. And
no.
Where is technology presented as
cars
scary?
run people over. The phone is always like a symbol of like something bad happening. Like affairs happen through the phone. Gatsby's nefarious dealings are all through the phone.
The 1920s were quite a time for like economic and technological boom.
Yeah, it was all new stuff, and it's like he's really scared of it.
Maybe it was a Luddite. Is that the right word?
Exactly, yeah.
Edit that second part out. That is the
definitely
word.
not gonna.
I think with the phone, I think it's more the fear of the sort of absent person, the person that you don't really know about.
Yeah,
the fact that other things are happening that aren't happening right in front of you. Because I think, that has a lot to do with the war and everything as well, when there were just a lot of things happening that you weren't involved in.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought the technology part before.
Do you feel like the First World War had an effect on the book and had an effect on how the characters were written?
I personally kind of felt that it was just a bit of background. Like, it just kind of mentioned that Gatsby was in the war at one point, and then that was it.
F. Scott Fitzgerald he didn't even serve in the war. He just sort of did a bit of training and then the war was over. So he's got literally no experience in the war. So
he said he was a deserter.
No, I'm not saying he's a deserter at all, but I'm saying that he doesn't know what war is like because he didn't even get off.
Herman Melville only spent about 2 months on a whaling ship before he abandoned it, and he still wrote a ridiculously long novel about whalers. So that's never stopped anyone before.
Yeah, true. Okay.
And I guess just the sentiment of it,
I mean, I'd be shitting myself.
If you weren't on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Right,
exactly.
Well, that's it. But you're writing about the fear of war more than necessarily being on the battlefield.
I thought it was interesting how he brought it in to separate the rich and the poor, and it was just another device which was used to create that distance between the upper and lower classes. And a prime example being, and part of the reason why I didn't warm to Daisy in the way that some people have, is when Daisy says, "You didn't come back for my wedding," and then Nick goes, "I wasn't back from the war," and then she says, "That's true. Anyway, I've had a terrible time." So she's not only forgotten that the war happened, but when she's reminded of it, she doesn't care to understand it.
Yeah, sure.
It's a good point. It's never something that's touched on her life because there was never be any question of Tom being called up for the war.
Exactly.
Good point.
And that's another thing I picked up as well, is that Gatsby's sent away to war, and he loses his love with Daisy because she meets Tom, who didn't go to war, like you say. So Yeah, it's interesting. I found it was interesting how Fitzgerald kind of brought that in as a way to push those sort of class system even further, drive that divide.
Easting, Westing.
Yeah. But then what's also really interesting though is that on the flip side of that, that's the reason why Daisy was able to meet Gatsby in the first place, is because Gatsby was in officer's uniform, and therefore it was almost like a social leveller in some senses.
Why? What was the reason? I didn't quite. That part of the book went over my head a little bit. Why was a young Gats at Daisy's house?
Because everyone was trying to woo her, and he was just one of the people. There were many people, and he was the one that stuck.
Right, it's like Tinder.
Yeah, it was Tinder at the time. Yeah,
but she was just going right.
Come in, you got 5 minutes.
So if Daisy's this character who's not, some might argue although obviously some don't, but some might argue isn't particularly self-aware.
Yeah,
and again, only what we're presented of her isn't necessarily someone who you can really has a lot of substance to her. Then why is it that Gatsby loves her? Do we think?
Gatsby loves her because she's the dream.
Yeah, she's the
beautiful.
Green light.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
Right.
She's from a well-established family. She's everything that he technically can't have in his world. I don't know, but that's the thing about Gatsby's love for her, is you don't know if it's anything deeper than that on the surface. Of she's just something that he was told he couldn't have.
So she's sort of like the final boss, as it were.
She's the American. She's the American
like
dream.
the
American dream
final
final
Smash Brothers.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly
Fuck
right.
that guy.
Is she one of another?
She's
one
the Hatchie.
Is she another one of his like trinkets that he used to prove and justify who he is?
Yeah,
like with the photo of
potentially,
the Oxford and all that kind of stuff. He's just like the cherry on top.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, my friend.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Something that I noticed that was really interesting is when Tom tells Daisy about Gatsby's past, and Fitzgerald says, "Looks like Gatsby looks like he had just killed a man," and that's when kind of Gatsby, as a person, as a character, as a phenomenon, sort of dies.
Crashes down to earth.
Yeah, I thought that was incredibly powerful, actually.
I think I smiled at my own point there. So I leant back in my chair, ready for a puff of the pipe.
Put your arms up as well.
I was sort of hoping someone would interject, but no.
Were you hoping someone else was going to say?
I was at least expecting a round of applause, not laughter.
You took my breath away there. It was magnificent. It was like a galloping stallion.
God, now I feel set up. Where are the cameras?
That was lovely,
Right, dickhead.
Oh man. I'm not able to say that was beautiful. Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you.
I think you can kind of read Daisy as having an almost survivalist instinct, though. As a woman of that time, it almost seems like, she's just going where someone has money and blah, blah, blah. But as a woman of that time, you needed to be where the money was because you had no real way of making it on your own. I think Jordan Baker's the exception where she's a golfer, but she blatantly cheats. And
also, what's so interesting about that, that's a really good point, and actually it's really good to flip this on its head, because all I've done basically is slag off Daisy, and I don't mean to, it's just one angle.
I think there's another... Oh, sorry, go on, continue.
Oh, that's all right. But that's something that's really interesting, again, was that Jordan has her own, and that's why I liked her, Jordan has her own identity. She's a golfer, she's a sportswoman, she's got different emotions from other people. She's much more sort of sarcastic and sort of like looks to move between, is interested in the culture of it. But then you hear stories of the reason why she wants to hang around these places because she admired Daisy when she was younger. Daisy still didn't seem to have that much of merit, but she wanted what that was. And it's interesting that this keeps cropping up. Like, why do people want that life that Daisy and Tom have when they're so apparently, like, clearly unhappy? Even when Gatsby has money, even when Jordan has money, even when they've got successful careers in what they're doing, what is it that they're looking for that their life isn't providing?
I mean, I think that's the basis of the book, is it's kind of showing the American dream to be a sham.
Yeah.
Or it is all these people fighting for something that's not worth having.
Yeah.
That's a quote from something else, I can't remember what it is.
You know what that's
So it's like an attack on social mobility.
I want to bring this in now because it's such a good point. That almost word for word is like one of our listener questions from later. So I'm just going to drop it in now because otherwise I'll be doing them a disservice.
It's a quote from Vanity Fair, that's what it is. All these people fighting for a life that's not worth having. That's what it's from.
And also from Catherine, who's written in to say, I think my favourite aspect of the book is the idea of the ideal and how reality can never live up to it. I've always loved that moment when Gatsby looks at Daisy and realises she can never be everything he's built her up to be in his mind. And I think that's why all the rich characters are so terrible and whiny, because they've reached the top of society and realise it's all meaningless anyway. Fitzgerald's books always leave me feeling melancholy and a bit nihilistic, and I love it when a book leaves me with a mental aftertaste. Can be a bit hard to slog through several times in a row though, they get a bit samey.
So could you say that Gatsby's idea of Daisy is a simulacrum of Daisy?
Oh, mate!
See you later.
There's the nail.
I'm going for a cigarette.
There's the hammer on the head.
I'd be in tears if he was here right now.
That was one of the best things I've ever fucking said.
That came out of nowhere.
I think about nowhere. I've been saying this sort of shit all day.
Beautiful. Should we wrap up with good reads?
Okay, so one of the things I did to prepare for this podcast was get a kind of impression of what other people thought of the book, and I did that via Goodreads, which is where lots of people chat and rate books and
you're also
ask
setting
questions.
You're also setting the bar of what guests have to do each time.
I'm so impressed. They've done so much preparation.
They have to bring a feature.
No one ever does any prep.
Yeah, Ollie just turns up and sneers.
Don't slag him off, he's not here. Right.
Well, so while I was looking at what other people had thought of the book, they came up with some very good questions that were things that I had not even conceived of being asked about the book.
Okay.
So, question 1. Is Nick Carraway transgender? I couldn't tell.
I couldn't tell either.
So, I mean, a woman very politely responded to this question that she didn't think transgender was the right word because there were no hormone treatments in 1922.
Fair play.
But there were some questions about Nick's sexual preferences, which kind of come across in the book, which includes one part which I missed entirely, but apparently not many other people did.
I'd forgotten about it. You brought this up, and I'd completely forgotten about it, and it's so true because I remember it was really hazy reading that part of the book. But carry on.
So there was a question about whether Nick was gay or bisexual. He kind of has a semi-relationship with Jordan Baker, but then it kind of ends. But also, there's a latent homosexual scene which I missed every time I read it.
I've never noticed
with
it.
Mr. McKee, who is a character.
Is Mr. McKee?
He's a character who's invited to Myrtle's party, and he's the husband of one of the women there. I think there's also a Mrs. McKee anyway.
Right.
But I completely missed the fact that Nick leaves the room with him, goes down in the elevator where apparently he's told to keep your hands off the lever by the elevator boy.
Phallic.
And Mr. McKee suggests that Nick come to lunch someday, which is apparently a euphemism, but again, I wasn't aware of that at the time.
And then he wanks him off.
However,
Didn't say that in the book.
in the book, it does say, though, that I was standing beside his bed and he was sitting up between the sheets, clad in his underwear, with a great portfolio in his hands, by which point he then goes through.
This is not happening in the book.
I know! I missed it. I missed it completely.
I remember it happening. Because I remember thinking, that's weird.
I've read this book twice. I listened to the audiobook 1.5 times. 1.5 times?
Yeah.
And I do not remember the character Mr. McKee or this lust.
I missed it every time that I read
Really?
it. I think it was one of those things where it's a party that's sort of like drug fueled and he's really drunk and it's just sort of like lights, people, colours, someone's blowing bubbles, you know, that kind of thing. And I think I just got a bit like, you know, maybe I sort of like skimmed it a bit because I'm like, well, he's not paying attention to what's going on, so maybe I won't bother either.
Well, I guess
so I just missed it entirely.
I guess it doesn't really matter, but I mean, he might be if he wants. If that's how he gets kicks fair play. Doesn't really matter.
I think it's another way for Nick to be an ambivalent character.
I think he's definitely. I would argue he's definitely in love with Gatsby.
Yeah,
like no question about it.
Yeah,
like whether or not that's a platonic thing or a sexual thing, I think it's probably a bit of both.
What would you say?
It doesn't. It'd be good for him to have some sort of personality.
Good point, actually. Have you got any more good reads?
I do. I have one more Goodreads. Goodreads question number 2.
This is great. We should keep this feature.
Goodreads question number 2 is: my teacher keeps on insisting that Jay Gatsby is black. Is he?
Sorry.
You seen that film?
The teacher keeps on insisting.
Stop insisting on it.
I mean, I feel like that's a good way of saying sort of like, oh, my mate thinks this, and it's like, well, no, you think that. But I don't know where that would have come from. I mean, Jordan Baker actually says at one point, "We're all white here."
All right, well then dismiss it. It doesn't matter.
We're gonna be all white.
They're all white. But,
then in that case, the teacher's a fucking idiot because it's already been
I mean,
stated.
in fairness, a point being that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, of
and
course.
It would be interesting if he was, because then that would be another reason that Tom instantly has disdain for him, is because he's got a problem with people
with the
black,
literature. And
if he's got money doing this stuff, then maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
But it would act as an extra level, I think, with the sort of like racial tensions in America, even now, but at that time as well.
Yeah.
I think that would definitely have made it. I mean, it wouldn't even have been conceivable for like African American.
It would probably
Gatsby
also
to
explain
have
why it
got to
didn't
that
sell
level.
very well at the time. Commercially.
Right.
This strikes me as one of those things that if Great Gatsby was written by J.K. Rowling, he'd be straight on Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, Gatsby was black, by the way.
Yeah, Nick was transgender,
And also, Dumbledore hates David Cameron.
I want to make clear to this that we haven't got a problem with any of those things being true.
Also,
It's just
I love
more,
J.K. Rowling, so...
but backpedaling is, yeah.
Sorry, Rhiannon.
That's alright. So those are the main questions I think that I
They
thought
are
would be
really good.
interesting.
Excellent.
But in general, what I found interesting in general were that people tended to rate it Great Gatsby either as 1 star or 5 star. There were very few, sort of like 19 out of 20 would be 1 star or 5 stars. Very few would be the average 3 or 4. Like, it was okay. It's not the best thing I've ever read.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite interesting. I wondered if the reason it was so polarising was maybe because it's a novel that you read at a particular time in your life and affects you more at one time than another, or I don't know. What do you think the reason for that would be? Or maybe it's just people online just like hating on stuff or loving stuff.
I think when you big something up to someone, they kind of... it can be very disappointing.
Yeah.
And the fact it's called The Great Gatsby
so I think
feeds into
like,
that.
Yeah, maybe expecting it to be an amazing book, take against it
Yeah.
for that reason. Because I don't think...
Yeah.
I think hating it's a bit much, really.
Well,
I can't imagine why anyone would really
Yeah,
hate
it's still
it.
written beautifully,
Yeah.
regardless of what happened.
Some people like really do hate it, and this is something that I've come across as well.
Yeah.
So talking to my friends about it, I know that some of them didn't really like it, and some of them really loved it.
Yeah.
I know that Rhiannon, when she goes, she's got another book club. You know, we don't like to talk about.
What?
There is
Whoa.
another.
Hang on a second.
I get around.
Hold it, cowboy!
But I know that she asked someone at that book club, doing a bit of research, doing a bit like undercover, sort of like two-way, informal kind of work.
Well, as long as it's undercover.
What they said about the book, and they said.
Yeah, so she actually gave me a Twitter handle, it's Clem Brulee, which I think is a wonderful Twitter
Excellent.
handle.
Thank you, Creme Brulee.
She wrote, I hated it. It was a book about rich people being discontent with their privileged lives.
Yeah,
I wanted to
fair
stop
enough.
them. I wanted them to stop being arrogant, stop wasting money, look after their children, and not run people over with their cars.
To be fair, that's exactly what my nan said about it.
Yeah. It's true. It's one of the reasons why I didn't...
But is that
I
what
was
you think
very
people don't
good
like?
on
Is
the
that
road.
what you think? Why is that what you think? Why you think people don't like it? Is because they just don't like
Well,
the story?
it's funny that you said that people either give it a 1 star or a 5 star, because I would give it a 3 star. Because although it was, really beautifully read and it's fairly, plot rich...
But you're not gagging for plot.
I don't want to read about rich people fucking dicking each other over, really. That doesn't interest me.
Well,
Do you like Made in Chelsea?
I hate Made in Chelsea, if I'm honest, mate, but that's not a comparison.
But it's not so interesting.
It doesn't interest me.
But isn't it interesting the fact that The Great Gatsby and Made in Chelsea are very similar things, and we are still
hang on a second.
no. But it's true. We have a fascination with things that we don't live in.
With how the 1% live.
Yeah, exactly. We have a fascination with why, we love.
Yeah, some people do, some people don't. I don't really.
Yeah, I
Other
agree.
People will.
And I think a lot of the popularity of this book, I think some people miss the point of it, which is that people really get seduced by this whole.
People even now have Great Gatsby
Gatsby
Park.
parties,
My friend
exactly.
literally went to Great Gatsby Park. Actually, he's going there tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so it happens all the time.
People think it's really cool to this day, even though it's shown to be awful in this book.
I think maybe one of the... I'm trying to think of how I'm going to word what I was going to say. I think perhaps it's what people focus on when they read the book. So you can focus on the very privileged rich people who just are making a mess of their own lives and things like that, which I think is what... I originally read it for A-level and I hated it because you hate any book that you have to study at school.
Yeah.
You read one passage 100 times, you have to read it aloud in class. It's made the worst few days of your life.
Yeah.
But I think it was about 6 months after my A-level exam on it where it suddenly clicked that I loved this book and it was great and there are so many great things about it.
Yeah.
But I think that it's potentially what you focus on. So I think it's when I realised, I was leaving high school, I was taking a first step on that steadily sinking boat, which is adulthood, and you kind of appreciate just the hope, the sheer pure hope that Gatsby lives off of.
Yeah.
That he's so hopeful that this is his life, this is how it's going to turn out, and everything's going to turn out all right, that, that everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And it just kind of reminds me of how you are when you're sort of convincing yourself, like, this job is going to work out for me, and it's all going to be great, and you can see yourself, like, steadily going down, it's fine, it's great, this is how it's supposed to be, and it's,
Infinite
I think
hope.
It's just this hope. I think the hope is what got to me at that
what
point.
kills you.
Yeah, what foul dust floats in the wake of your dreams, eh? To be fair, the language is another reason why I think it's amazing. Even if it wasn't the plot, I think the solid 4 stars from me, I think, will come from the language itself.
Yeah.
I think the last couple of lines, terrific. I can't remember exactly what they are, but it's something about bobbing on the water.
We beat on boats against the current, borne back facetiously into the past.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
She's good, isn't she? She's good.
Rhiannon, you're terrific.
Josh says bobbing on the water.
You summed it up, basically, what it was. But,
Just bobbing on the water. Anything to that?
Well, what do we think the significance of...
I think that's a nice place to stop, actually.
Alright, I'm just going to talk about,
because
talk about the
we've
fact that Gatsby gets murdered, but...
No, I think it's fine.
Right.
I think it's end of the book, end of the pod.
I feel like you only want to talk about where Gatsby gets murdered because I've reminded you that's what happened.
Yeah, I should know about it.
I've read it twice.
We talked about the ring. We didn't talk about the ring in like the Hobbit.
I've read it twice and didn't even realise Gatsby died over time. I brought this up in the first one. It's so blasé.
What do you mean? He gets shot in a swimming pool.
It just says that there's just a ring of red. Obviously, that's quite blatant.
He's face down in the pool. There's no getting out of that one.
Snorkeling.
Well, thank you very much, Catherine and Clem, for your questions. If you want to get in touch with us, you can via email.
@gmail.com.
Oh, Josh beat you. And via Twitter.
@ANovelPod.
And via Instagram.
@ANovelPod.
Cool. And I think all that's left is to put our scores on it. So... Rhiannon, as your guest this week, you can go first. How much did it entertain you out of 5?
I think I would give it a 4. I like the book. I'm willing to defend it. I'm not willing to die for it, as some people seem to be the 5 stars.
Yeah.
I think the language of it stuck with me over the years. Like I said, I haven't read it since A-level, and I still remember parts of it.
Yeah, me too.
And I still remember themes of it. So I think it's a solid 4 from me.
Yeah, and how much has it stayed with you out of 5?
Well, that's kind of tied into the same thing. I think it has definitely stayed with me. I still remember parts of it. So
yeah, you were quoting from memory. Josh could barely read off a paper, and you were quoting from memory, so it's very
right. That's a bit mean. Josh has written a book, man.
Josh has done a great job. I take that back. I'm trying to fill in. Ollie's not here. I'm trying to fill in.
I'm just minding my own business, looking at the screen, and you've got some bloke over there yabbering off.
I'm letting it out now, mate. If you want me to really hammer in on your fucking story later, we can do that. But
you need to go sort yourself out, have a cigarette or something, mate.
Right, was that 4 again?
Yeah, I think 4 again.
And how much would you recommend it?
I would recommend it. I think it's a book that people should have read at some point. I think it comes up a lot, and there's a lot of value in it, so I would definitely recommend it.
So 4 again?
4, yeah. Solid 4s.
Is it solid 4s?
12 from Rhiannon. Joe Roy, how much did it entertain you?
Do you know what? Actually, it surprised me because I tried reading it before and hadn't really invested in it.
Yeah.
And then when I read it this time, I got into it, so I'll give it 4 as well.
Yeah. How much has it stayed with you?
I don't know. The message felt a bit repetitive after a while, and I wasn't a 3 maybe.
And how much would you recommend it?
Probably a 3. I liked it, but again, yeah.
So that's
Josh,
22.
22. How much did it entertain you?
3.
How much has it stayed with you? Sorry.
It's alright. Don't worry about it.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
No, not anymore.
How much has it stayed with you?
Major position quite clear. Stay with me again. 3.
If this is a 3, I'm going to be annoyed.
How
much would you recommend it?
5, because it's good enough for the garden. It's good enough for...
Okay, so that's 11, 22, 33 out of 45.
It's pretty decent.
Not bad.
I felt
I mean, they're all...
lower than I felt, but
yeah. They're all thereabouts, aren't they? Really, the ones that we do.
Next up,
we need some sort of chart, actually.
Yeah,
like
like
Top Gear.
If we were big cheeses, as you say, someone would make that for us.
Yeah, Josh.
Next up, Wormworld Chapter 2. So last time we had Chapter 1, Wormworld. This time we've got Chapter 2. What's it called, Josh?
The tricky second chapter.
Yeah. And I think for the purpose of Rhiannon and also the listener, it might be good if someone brought everyone up to speed on what the fuck's going on.
I'll let Jenny
There are a lot of typos in this.
Rhiannon's
it's poetic license, so.
just like Fitzgerald, mate. That's the way you got to
Exactly.
So Josh, do you want to fill everyone in on what happened in Chapter 1?
Usually I type really, really well, but because it's fitting with F. Scott Fitzgerald, I thought.
Okay, so yeah, this is a series, and it's being presented much like Dickens did in a sort of periodical, like every new issue of the magazine he wrote for, a new chapter appeared.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a book, as far as I can remember, or frankly as I understood it at the time. Initially, it's about some worms who is a family of worms who I think then get eaten by moles.
Yep.
And they talk a lot about how
they're in the mud casserole.
They're in the mud casserole. And they talk a lot about how there's some shadow crawlers, and there's a rat king, and there's an archery competition, and there's this whole dystopian world outside of their small...
Of animals.
Yeah. It's a bit like basically Robin Hood, but darker.
Okay.
Like the Disney version
It's
of
not
Robin
dark
Hood.
yet. It might turn that way, but...
Right.
Would you say that's a fair summary?
Yeah.
And why did you write it?
Drunken bet. Mainly. And also... Yeah, I mean that was the most part. We spoke about it. I thought I could do better. Well, not better, but on par with a lot of
fantasy fiction. And I believe Rhiannon works for a fantasy fiction.
I currently
also,
work for a fantasy fiction publisher.
And also Rhiannon, because we haven't yet released the first episode, Rhiannon hasn't.
No, she's not heard it.
Hasn't heard Wormworld yet.
So Rhiannon's going to read this out for us with professional expertise.
And can we just Josh? Can you give everyone a quick précis of where we left off? Well,
yeah. So where we left off, as you rightfully said, they were the Wormworld. They got eaten by the moles who were in the mud casserole, and they had a talk around the table. So you got introduced to Mama Mole, Papa Mole, Great Granddad Mole, and Quentin Black. They were just sort of chatting about the shadow crawlers, who seemed like an ominous bunch at the moment. There were talks of rebellion many a year ago, and then, as Josh rightfully said, there's going to be a royal archery tournament where Quentin Black is participating.
Wonderful. Take it away, Rhiannon.
Okay, Chapter 2, the tricky second chapter. I've lived a life that's full. I've travelled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Emitted the small radio alarm clock on the bedside table in the Rat King's chambers as His Majesty gradually arose from his royal slumber. And that was your early morning wake-up call on the morning of the Royal Archery Tournament, continued the radio in a shrill, squeaky voice. Ooh, okay.
Continue.
I'm your host, DJ Doormat, and you're listening to 183.0 FM. You can find me later on at the tournament itself, as we'll be broadcasting live and direct from the palace courtyard, where all of the day's festivities take place. So come on down!
Okay, 183 is the amount of time that dormouses hibernate for.
Oh, very nice.
Right, you're just going to do like little
Director's notes. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
All right, carry on.
That's DJ Doormat.
The stout king clambered to his feet, giddy with excitement. The Royal Archery Tournament was his favourite day of the year and represented everything he had worked so hard to achieve in his 50 years as king. And this particular event was going to be the grandest and most grandiose of them all.
Ooh.
To celebrate such a long stint as the Big Cheese, as he playfully entitled himself.
You like that phrase, don't you?
Rats like cheese, probably.
Before the Rat King was even fully erect.
What?
little playful phallic joke there.
Euphemism?
Yeah, but it's actually to do with him just standing up. So. Get your mind out the gutter.
His belly rumbled like a beating drum, So discarding his ordinary morning routine of practicing his speeches in the mirror like a hairy sim and plotting various methods of oppressing the masses / building his substantial wealth, he robed up in the royal robe and made his way from his chambers towards the great hall with a slight spring in his step, humming the tune that awoke him. Already at the luxuriously decorated royal table in the grand hall, by the time he got there, was the Rat Queen and Rat Prince, whom he respectively kissed on the cheek and ruffled the head of, before finally fist-bumping the last member of the party at the table, the King's Hand, and then settling his pronounced batty onto the royal throne at their head.
Is the King's Hand an actual hand?
No, you'll find out soon.
Where have you taken that from, Josh?
What, the royal batty?
No, the King's Hand.
Game of Thrones.
To be fair, fantasy fiction has a long history of borrowing from other...
Well, that's what I'm doing, yeah. I'm borrowing tropes.
"Good morning, Papa," the Rat Prince exclaimed excitedly as a retort to the ruffle, his bow ready beside him for the early morning youth tournament. "How did you sleep? Did you nightmare? Esmeralda will be down to breakfast shortly," asked the Rat Queen.
She did, yeah. She asked.
With feigned curious intent.
Ooh, feigned curious intent. What could that mean?
"I slumbered pure and true last night. The recurring nightmare did not plague me. Although I am so gassed at the day's events that I could not have slept for the past night of 4, and I would wield enough energy to vanquish 100 rebels." The Rat King scoffed towards his current audience, with only the Toad replying with a wry smile and seemingly dismissing the Queen's previous statement, addressing the King's forgotten daughter.
What's going on there then? Innit?
"Welcome, Your Highness," eagerly pronounced the King's Hand. His large jewel quivering jowl. He's like,
I think that's like what a frog's neck is. Jowl.
I think that's a spelling thing in this case.
It's not what you've written, but yeah.
Probably is.
His large jowl quivering as he spoke. "All festival preparations, Ribbit, have been executed smoothly and with aplomb, and security heightened as requested. You'll be pleased to hear that Senor Bull, the archery teacher, cannot take place in the tournament, as a young blind peasant boy subsequently blinded him in one eye. Ironic, eh? So there is less competition for state domination this year."
Are you recycling the bullseye joke?
Yeah, Senor.
So good he brought it up.
Senor Bull in the last episode got hit in the eye, but because he got a bullseye,
So
got
Senor Bull's eye.
Yeah.
And they said, and he said, "Well, I should say I got a bullseye." And he went, "No, I got a bullseye."
Yeah.
Has Pratchett ever written anything like it?
No.
I think so.
Fucking Pratchett.
Another ribbit echoed through the hall as his latest statement was concluded, which shook the table, spilling the Toad's flagon of extra hoppy mead from its lips.
Hoppy.
Nice.
Toad.
Yeah, no, good. We like that.
I didn't actually come up with that one as well. That was Holly, so.
So Holly co-written.
But it's terrific, yeah. I sent her all my edits, yeah.
And she didn't spot Jowl.
No.
You need a new editor.
I'll be having words with her.
"Excellent, Xavier. Excellent news indeed. I trust Sir Mustelidae?
Mustelidae, yeah.
Sir Mustelidae is ready and primed."
It's a group of animals.
Right.
That maybe Sir Mustelidae will be a species of. But you'll find out next time, maybe. Or you won't.
Right. "I trust Sir Mustelidae is ready and primed to pulverise all in his wake show off the prowess of the crown in the royal tournament." I have no idea what that sentence is.
That could be a little typo there. Where are we?
Here.
All in his wake, and to show off the prowess.
And to show off the prowess of the crown in the royal tournament,
Correct.
inquired the king. "That he is, my lord," replied Xavier. "And I'm ready as well, Papa," screeched Junior excitedly. "Ho, ho, ho! Excellent, Junior, excellent! You'll make quite the knight of the realm when you're of age, in preparation for taking the throne when I cannot to ensure the control of the state does not waver from our lineage.
That sounds
When
right.
I cannot to ensure.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Comma.
There was a comma in there.
We have ruled these lands with an iron paw for centuries, and
Come on.
I do not plan to relinquish control for the next 2 millennia, remarked the king in a jovial tone. A gong in the shape of the Rat King's face rung in the Great Hall to signal the arrival of the breakfast banquet that was to energise the Rat King and his royal subjects for the day of festivities ahead. From a hallway to the side of the hall emerged...
That sounds stupid.
emerged a small team of 4 mice, fully dressed in chef's whites, each pushing a trolley which was stacked with every single breakfast item you could think of under the sun. However, each individual component seemed to be spoiled or tarnished in some small way, which was just how the Rat King liked it. As the 4 mice did this...
Sorry, that might
The
be...
4 mice laid this.
Yeah, thank you.
They sung a small breakfast song to accompany the culinary delights that were soon to be devoured. Is there a tune to this song?
Just do what you want, I reckon.
Freestyle.
So it's this is the song.
Okay. Pile of pancakes all covered in shit. Full English breakfast served by a git. Slice of toast rubbed against an armpit. That's what the king loves.
It keeps going.
It goes on. There are several verses to this.
I'm just banging my tankard on the table.
The flagon.
Couple of Pop-Tarts covered in spew. Mouldy old OJ juiced in a shoe. Blueberry muffin that's too hard to chew. That's what the king loves. Rotten old croissant that's been left out for a while. Eggs Benedicts, but the yolk is just bile. Bowl of Cocoa Pops, but the milk is just vile. That's what the king loves. Smashed avocado and a goblet of piddle. Sugary donuts with dead flies in the middle. Something from America called the McGriddle. That's what the king loves. That's what the king loves. That's what the king loves. That's what the king loves.
I'm so sorry that I brought you onto this pod and we've degraded you. This is like this is like a police officer. Like it's just a rookie.
No,
and someone's given them a pair of handcuffs that don't actually.
I wrote this thinking that you were going to read this out, and so I was like,
This may be a new low from the Smash phone.
What? So sorry. So you're saying that this isn't the worst thing about your day, considering you just smashed your brand new phone. This is worse than that. Yeah.
that was
Okay.
a pretty good track then.
I really liked it. It was
Thanks.
kind of like Oliver Twist.
Thanks, mate.
Food Glorious Food, but a rap version.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Okay. Bravo, gentle mice, bravo! Exclaimed the Rat King with a beaming smile emblazoned across his face.
Blazing across his face.
The mice chefs, suspicious of this rare piece of praise, directed their way. Now back to your quarters, you subservient little grubs. I am expecting quite the feast for the royal dinner tonight to celebrate the wonderful reign of me. All of the finest and most reputable figures from across the kingdom will be dining with me, and I would like nothing but the best cuisines my land can offer. Yes, my lord, squeaked the mice as they retreated back to whence they came. Tails between their legs, feeling a little crummy, to start preparations for the long day ahead. Now, I command you all to consume these culinary delights as fast as you can, and we make our way to the royal box atop the courtyard. And then there's a lot of letters that I think I accidentally touched.
Oh yeah, you wrote a lot of letters, but that's
That's the end.
that's the end.
Dun dun dun, left on a cliffhanger.
Well, I thought that was excellent.
Thank you.
I mean, it was
Rhiannon,
nothing really happened.
Rhiannon,
Yeah,
you were
Rhiannon,
fantastic.
really good job.
really good job.
Nothing really happened. There was a fucking song in the middle of that.
Yeah, the song was good. Yeah.
You somehow managed to bring to life something which had clearly died a long time ago. So
I was just trying to introduce you to the Rat King, and now we're going
My
to go
cry.
bang back to
So
Quincy.
that was to fill in some sort of character.
Yeah, to give you character development of what the king is like. There were some subplots in there as well about who's Esmeralda, what's the sort of the Rat Queen up to. Well, of course you didn't. It's a bit of your head. It's very highbrow.
It's like the latent homosexual scene in Gatsby.
To do Xavier, the King's Hand Toad. There's a lot of different characters.
You introduced loads of characters, yeah, but I don't really see how any of them matter.
Oh, that's what you think. Say chapter 2.
Josh, you know what?
And then Sir Mastilla.
I didn't hate it.
I thought it was.
I didn't hate
Did you think it was fitting? Because I really struggled to write this one.
Nah, it was great.
I thought this was better than I understood what happened.
No, but you know why I think it was better though? I think Rhiannon read it out really well, and I think the first one you read it.
I panicked.
Yeah. But I think if you'd read the first one, I think it would have been just as good as in Rhiannon.
Shakespeare probably didn't perform in his own plays, so
exactly.
Yeah.
Rhiannon, as a professional publisher in fantasy fiction, how would you rate it?
Yeah, what would you?
I didn't realise that was my audience.
Oh, you know, second chapters are always tricky, aren't
Right, maybe let's leave it there to save it.
Right, we just got to decide what we're doing next.
Can I make a comment so far about the? I mean, I haven't. This is my first one, so I haven't been part of the others, but I've listened to some of the others.
It certainly shan't be a last as well, because we struggle for people to bring on. And you've been fantastic as well.
Yeah, you've been really good.
Thank you. What I've noticed so far is a lot of the books that you guys have talked about have been written by authors of very white, middle class background, very Western.
Yes,
I think the only one who's not male is Donna Tartt, who writes from a white male perspective. So, so I was just thinking maybe
I like to call it our safe space. Sorry, carry on.
Just a general.
No, I think we've had a secret meeting, and we firmly believe that's the case as well.
Yeah.
And so we've come up with a list, and I think next time we agreed to do Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Or we spoke about doing Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
That's a woman.
Which I've heard is a woman.
that is a woman.
I only think about
a
that.
woman who published under her own name, which was also quite rare at the time.
Yeah, I think it was like 200 years ago.
Take that.
Fucking.
I'm pretty sure though, actually, I did a bit of it in school. I think that she published under her own name, but people thought that it was a man publishing under her name.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because people genuinely thought that a woman couldn't write something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So I think Mary Shelley's Frankenstein up next, which again is a very seminal piece.
And chapter 3 of as yet untitled Wormworld.
Yeah, but if you got any ideas for what names you could call the whole entire chronicle, then I'm at a short. So.
Why don't you... I was going to say, why don't you ask Tony Pratchett if he's dead?
Oh Jesus!
I mean,
you sort of chortled that as well.
The Great Rat King.
Is he great though?
Oh, hello! Right. Hello. It's because someone said that earlier in the pod, didn't they? Yeah, no, that was a good one.
Got there. That was good. Nice one.
Well done, Rhiannon.
Excellent.
No worries.
I think. We didn't.